So once again, welcome to this webinar, which is based on the X factor, which is where I'm going to talk about when you should take variables, how you should take variables, and is there a specific reason why you should take variables? Okay. Before starting off, I would like to let you know that I'll be your host today. My name is Saqib. I am the lead product manager at GMAT I have about 10 years of experience in the tech industry. I love creating quant products and I love teaching quant. Uh, so that's briefly about me. Let's talk about this session. So those of you who have been attending this session, I might be kind of aware of how this goes, but very quickly, the section webinar would be divided into two parts. One is obviously the main part where I am going to discuss the main agenda, why you should take variables, when and how to take it. And obviously, at the end of the webinar, I'll be keeping about 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A session. So if you have any general queries regarding GMAT prep or quant prep, anything at all, feel free to ask them at the end of the session. I will be more than happy to answer them. Okay, so with that, guys, let's get started. Let me first of all talk about why and when you should take variables. Okay, so to talk about that, I would first of all want to take up a general scenario. Okay, like when you're solving questions, any question, be it a word problem question or a algebra question or number properties question, what I've observed is that this is, and again, this is for some of you might not fall in this category, which is totally okay. But a general observation is that whenever you see a question, what you basically do is you start reading it, which is fine, but then the moment you read some part of it, you start solving immediately without even completing reading the question properly. Okay, so some of you might start creating equations, some of you might start scribbling a lot of things, a lot of calculations without even understanding maybe the crux of the question, and maybe in a hurry not even writing the right equation. What this leads to is that you waste some time, you spend about 1.5 minutes, and maybe after that you realize that, hey, I'm making some mistake, or I don't know where am I going. I'm not sure whether I'm moving in the right direction or not. Okay, what this leads to is basically wastage of time, because what's going to happen is you might have made some mistake because you were reading very quickly, you started solving without realizing what you need. Then what happens is you go back to the question again, you read it again, and either under time pressure, you end up marking the incorrect answer, or the other thing that can happen is that you take a lot of time. So a question which maybe can be solved under 2 minutes, you might end up taking 3 to 4 minutes. Now, how many of you fall under this category? So here's a poll. If you fall under this category, or if you have been in such a situation, it's not every time, but if you have been under this situation, you can mark yes, saying that, hey, I have been in such a situation where, so I've opened a poll for you. So if you're under a situation where you have fallen into this category, please mark yes. And if you don't fall into this category, well and good, fair enough. Okay. Okay, I can see a good amount of you fall under this category. So let me end the poll. So I can see about 90% of you are saying that you fall under this category, which is, again, as I told you, it's not surprising, it happens. But believe me, to fix this approach, it's very easy. The first thing, obviously, is to have a good, solid conceptual knowledge. Without that, you will not be able to solve any question correctly. But apart from having a good conceptual knowledge, what I believe, and this is the way you might have seen me solving questions in the webinar, and also those of you who are our students, you must have seen that's the way I teach also. What I believe the correct approach is that whenever you read a question, you read it really slowly and you analyze each and every statement properly. Okay. And at the same time, what you do is you just jot down relevant informations. Okay. Jot down relevant equations. If required, create the equation, but don't solve them. If you think that say, for example, if a statement says A is 20% more than B, either you jot down that information that A is 20% more than B, or you simply write the equation A is, say, B 1.2B. That's it. But don't go about solving anything apart from that. After you have jotted down the information, after you have analyzed the question properly, then you should actually see what are you trying to find out. A lot of people jump into the question, solve everything, or find out all the variables, and then they realize, and then they go back to the question to see what they were being asked for. This leads to another mistake, by the way, that a lot of you don't read what is being asked, and say you have ended up taking a variable as x. For example, there are two variables x and y. You solved it. You got the value of x. You see that in the option. You end up marking it. And this is a very common mistake. People take a variable and they don't check whether whether I'm asking solely about x or am I asking about something else. So the right way is to not jump into the question directly, reading it, breaking the information into different pieces, figuring out what is the important piece is an important part of the process. Now, some of you might feel that, hey, Sakib, this is fine, but isn't that going to take a lot of time to do this? Well, frankly, I have been using this approach, okay, for a long time. And as far as GMAT is concerned, GMAT, at least quant, I'm talking from the quant perspective, is not a test of speed. They're not testing your speed here, okay? They're giving you 62 minutes to solve all the 31 questions. They're giving you exactly 2 minutes to do it. And believe me, most of the questions, when I say most, I'm talking about more than 50 to 60% of the questions, if you follow a methodical approach, without even using any shortcuts, believe me, without doing any shortcuts at all, you can still solve that question under 2 minutes. And that's like very, very important to understand that, because if you hurry, if you feel the pressure of time, you are definitely going to make time or take more time. You're definitely going to make silly mistakes even while taking variables. But this was a general trend that I was talking about solving any questions. Now, what I'm going to focus more in this webinar is in the second part, where you are creating equations and jotting down relevant information. And obviously, I'll be using questions to show you how you can do this. Okay. Uh, okay. So how do I do this? Let me tell you very clearly. To solve a question correctly, especially word problem questions where you need to create equations, okay, when you want to solve such questions, there are two kind of skills which are very important, guys. Okay, the two, and there are many other skills also in general, but two which I feel is very important is, one is the skill of translation. And that is the main purpose of this session today, where I'm going to talk about how you can read a question, be it a word problem question or any question which does not deal with an equation, and how you can read that properly and convert that into an equation by taking the right variables and taking the right amount of variables. Sometimes you take a lot of variables, sometimes you take two less variables, and you make a mistake. So that's one of the skills that I'm going to talk about. But in general, in difficult questions, you will notice that you also need a skill of inference. Like, for example, if you see a statement which says mod of x is equal to, say, 4, you should be able to infer what could be the possible values of x. So you should be able to infer what does that mean. Okay, so those kind of things are also important, but primarily my focus in this session would be in the first part where I talk about translation. Okay, now if some of you are wondering what does that mean, what exactly is translation, what I've done is I have taken two questions just to give you an idea. Let me bring up those very quickly. Now, both are official questions. You don't need to solve it, but I just wanted to show you what do I mean by translation. What I mean by that is, now question number one is where you have been given the equations directly. You have the equations. Now, all you need is the conceptual knowledge and a bit of simplification skill to get the answer. Okay, you can solve this question because your equations are already set up for you. Okay, now on the other hand, the question number two that you can see on the right hand side, again, an official question. Notice it's a word problem question, just numbers. They've just mentioned some numbers, 11%, 7%, 1%, right? But there's no equation given as such. Okay, there might be some relationship given in it, but no equation as such. And in such questions, you need to actually set up the equation on your own. Now, how many of you are comfortable setting up these equations? Kindly mark yes if you're okay, you are able to do it very easily. Mark yes if you're able to do it, and no if you feel, no, I'm not that good with translation. If you have understood the difference properly, can you tell me how many of you are comfortable with it? If you're comfortable, please mark yes. And if you're not comfortable, please mark no. So you read a word problem question and you're not sure what words to take, variables to take. Okay. Okay. I have. Can I have a few more responses? Okay. So I can see it's almost, I would say, a 50-50 split. About half of you are saying that you are able to create, you know how to translate properly, and about half of you are saying that you are not able to do it that well. Okay, that's fine. See, the purpose of this session is obviously to talk about this only, to when to take variables, which variables to take. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, and that's a trend of every session, is I'm going to take certain questions. I have 7. Depending on how much time we have, we'll try and discuss all 7, or we'll try to do as much as we can within the time limit. And in this, I'm going to obviously show you the right way to solve the question and what kind of variables you can take to solve the question. Okay. But I want to add just one small disclaimer here, and just one which I think is very important. So whatever question that I'm going to discuss today, I'm going to solve them keeping in mind the theme of the webinar. Okay, so the theme of the webinar is to take variables and solve it. Okay, uh, is there a better way to solve these questions? When I say better way, like for example, taking numbers or something like that, there is, and there could be for some questions. Okay, but I'm not going to focus on that at this point of time. I'm being very clear here, because in the last webinar, a lot of you were asking about alternate solutions. I don't want to get into that, because the purpose would then not be served. Okay, and it might also take up a lot of time in discussing that. So whatever questions I'm going to discuss in terms of variables. If you have any questions related to that, please feel free to ask. Okay, but as far as alternate methods are concerned, I may or may not touch it, depending on if I have time, I'll do it. If not, I may not. Okay, so I hope you understand this, guys. It's just in the interest of time, I want to do that. Okay, so how am I going to conduct this session, this part of the session? What I'm going to do is I am going to give the question to you, show the question to you, and I'll give you again 2.5 minutes to solve it. Once I have sufficient responses, I will end the poll, and then I'm going to discuss what variables you could have taken. Is there a way we could have avoided variables, or and things like that. Okay, so if this is perfectly clear, guys, kindly mark yes so that I can give you the first question. If this is perfectly clear, can you please mark yes? Okay, that's great. I can see it's clear to everyone. So guys, here's the first question, and I would request all of you to mark your answer in the poll. So I'll be giving you a poll. I want the answer in the answer poll. Kindly do not mark your answer in the chat, or do not give your answer in the chat box. That's a request. Okay. So here's the question, and here's your poll, guys. And you have 2 minutes to solve this. So guys, I'll give you another 30 seconds, and then I'm going to end the poll. So those of you who haven't responded yet, or those who are solving, I would say you should increase your pace a bit. We are already past 2 minutes, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, in fact, now. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. So I have an interesting result here. First of all, how did you find this question? Was it difficult? Was it easy? How was it? This, I would say, should not have been, at least in terms of taking variables, should not have been that difficult. But how did you feel about this question? You can type in your response in the chat box. Okay, Ria says easy, Jonathan says easy, Ashima medium and tricky. Okay. What about the others? Okay, easy. Harsh is okay. Okay, easy until it it comes up wrong. Okay, so that's a good answer. Lengthy to calculate with too many options, Yogi. So that's the Yogi. So I'm going to take up that part. It's not lengthy if you can actually break it down into if you can simplify it. So I'm going to talk about it. That's don't worry. But as I can see, most of you are saying that it's an easy question. Okay, let's see if it was actually easy or not. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I solve such questions, and along the way, if I feel the need of asking you some questions, I'll do that also. So let's get started. So what I do is, again, I'll start by reading the question stem really slowly. So here it says, Bob bought only two type of chocolates. Okay, so there are two type of chocolates, easy to understand. Eclairs that cost $1.2 per chocolate. So what I do is I start writing down small stuff. So I'll say, okay, I have eclairs, and the cost of the eclair is $1.25 per chocolate. Okay, and Kit Kat is $0.6 per chocolate. Okay, I need to find out how many eclairs did he buy. So notice in the question, I've been given the price of each and every chocolate, and I've been asked how many chocolates or how many eclairs did he buy. So this is a typical kind of question which you'll come across in the exam, where you'll be given the cost and you'll be asked to find out the number of quantity. You'll be asked to find the quantity, sorry, or you would be given the quantity and you might be asked about the cost. So in such scenarios, what I do is I take up a variable. I simply say, okay, I need to find how many eclairs. That's my unknown entity. So let me assume that the number of eclairs is, say, small e. Okay. And in the same way, you can say the number of Kit Kat is small k. Okay. And these are your costs. Please keep in mind, this is cost. This is the number, actually the quantity. Don't mess it up. Now, before moving on to the statement, there's also something else which I do, but that is optional, that you don't need to do it. Sometimes I preempt that if they're asking me about cost and quantity, there's a chance that they might ask me to find out the total quantity, total value also. So sometimes I also write this down. You may or you may not. You can directly move on to the statement also. That is totally okay. So I'll say the total amount that Bob is spending is, if the number of chocolates is E and it's $1.25, then he's spending 1.25, the cost per chocolate multiplied by the entity, and zero point 0.6 times K. I'll write this down. Okay. And then I'll move on to the statements. So let's look at the first statement. The first statement is he spent a total of $14.8 on buying chocolates. Okay, so he's spending a total amount. So that tells me that 1.25E plus 0.6K is equal to 14.8. Okay. Now, let me ask you a question very quickly. Just one second. Let me note down the accuracy level at this point of time somewhere before I remove this poll. Okay, I have noted it down. How many of you believe that statement one is not sufficient? You looked at this and you said, hey, there are two variables, one equation. So this is not sufficient. How many think that this inference is correct? Kindly mark yes if you think this is correct. Two variables, one equation, I cannot get my answer. So this has to be not sufficient. If you agree with what I'm saying, mark yes. If you don't agree with me, mark no. Okay, let me end the poll. By the way, it's fluctuating a lot. Okay. So I would say it's 60-40. I would say it's going around that. So I'll take that. So at one point of time it was 70-30. So a lot of you say agree to this fact that it's two variable, one equation. So I'll not get the answer. So those of you who said yes, guys, you are incorrect. Okay. Kindly do not make this mistake of thinking that if there are two variables and one equation, we can never get the answer. If you think that way, you're wrong. There's one thing which I deliberately did not talk about in the previous step is that I told you, right, there's something called implicit inferences, remember? So here's one implicit inference here. You buy chocolates, okay? Chocolates, when you go and buy in a shop, and the general trend is that you don't go and tell the shopkeeper, hey, give me half a chocolate, right? You go and buy the chocolate. So one inference that you should have made here is that these are positive integers. E and K are positive integers. Keep this in mind. Okay, that's an implicit inference that you might miss and make a mistake. So if this is not possible, then obviously what you're saying might be correct. But if they are integers, then your job should be to at least check whether you can get a unique solution or not, because you're just looking for positive integers. Okay, so I will not give up now. I'll still solve this. I won't just discard it. Okay, now I can see there are decimals and I don't like to work with decimals. So I am going to multiply this by 100 and I am going to write it as 125e plus 60k is equal to 148. So I'm multiplying the whole thing by 100. Okay, you can remove the decimal points also the other way. But this is what I am doing. And if you notice, all these numbers are divisible by 5. So what you can do is you can divide all of them, each number by 5 very quickly, and then say this is 25e plus 12k is equal to 296. Okay. Now, most of you, I am assuming that might have gone till here. And one of the chat, I think Yogi said that it was lengthy to calculate with too many options. Now, what you do is whenever you have this equation, this is a condition which I call it as a special equation. Why do I call it a special equation? Because even when I have a single equation, I may still get the answer. Now, my advice would be don't try and put random numbers here like e is equal to 1, e is equal to 2, k is equal to 1, k is equal. Don't do this. Okay. If any of you try and do it like this, that's a very inefficient way of solving question. You will take a lot of time. So here's a small thing which I'm going to teach you. It's not very difficult also. What you can do is you can simplify this equation. Okay. So how do I simplify it? I very quickly take one of the big ones, the one with the bigger coefficient, to the other side. Okay. And then so basically what my role is to convert this. So keep one variable here and take everything on the right hand side. Okay. So if you're solving such an equation in the exam, and if you face a special equation, very quickly do this. Take everything on the right hand side, keeping one variable here. Now what you do is, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to the next slide, guys. So bear with me a bit. So we got this. I'm writing it here so that we are all on the same page. Let me just check very quickly. Yeah. Okay. Now what you can do is you can break 296 and 25 in such a way that you get multiple of our 12. Now, what do I mean by that? If you look at 296 and if you divide by 12, okay. And again, I'm explaining it to you, so I'm taking all the time I need to do this. In the exam, obviously, you need to do it very quickly. 12 times 4 is 48. So what I can do is, I know I can write 296 as 12 times 24 plus 8. So I've broken this down, 296. And 25 is easy to break. You can write it as 24e minus e by 12. Okay, so I hope this part is clear. This is very crucial to solve the question. Now, what you can do is you can break this down. So whichever are multiple of 12, you write them separately. So 12 times 24 by 12. I'm taking minus 24e, minus 24e by 12. And I'm taking whatever is remaining. This part is remaining together. So what I get here is 24 minus 2e plus 8 minus e by 12. Now I'll pause here for a moment for 10 seconds and ask you, is this part clear or not? Let me put up a poll very quickly. Is this part clear? Is any of the step was confusing? Please ask. Or was this perfectly clear? If it's clear, please mark yes. If there's anything not clear, I would request you to ask me in the chat box. I'll try my best to answer it. But understand this, the process is pretty simple. You have an equation. Let me go back. You had an equation, this one, okay? What you're doing is very quickly taking everything to the right-hand side and keeping just a variable like this, okay? And then you're breaking it down. So you're taking 296, you're seeing how it can be written. It can be written as 24 times 12 plus 8. You wrote it like this. And you're writing 25e. Again, whatever is the denominator, you're trying to convert it into that multiple. That's all. Now, how is this helpful? This is helpful, guys, because understand this, I don't need to do any more hit and trial. Obviously, I'll have to, but the hit and trial is very easy now. Now, look at this. Look at just this portion. Now, if I want to cancel the numerator and the denominator, and I'm looking for a positive value, and I have 8 minus e, I know that the value of e must be 8 only. Okay, so I can say that if e is 8, then I can get 2 times 8, and obviously this would become 0, but I'm just writing it for your convenience, just so that you can visualize it properly. So 24 minus 16 is 8, and e is 8. Notice how easy was it to find out a value here. Instead of randomly putting in values, I just solved it methodically, and I got the answer as, let me write the equation, the whole equation once again, 25e plus 12k is equal to 296. So I know the value of e would be 8, the value of k would be 8. Very quickly, instead of doing a random hit and trial. Okay, I have a few questions. Let me just look at it very quickly. Okay. Yes, you can take that, Janardhan. That's not a problem. If you want to do that, you can definitely do that. 1.25 goes into steps. Yes, obviously, if you want to work with 1.25, you can work with it. Okay. Ashima is asking why we took 8. Let me come to that very quickly. Why can't we simplify and write k is equal to 28 minus 25e by 12? Wouldn't be faster to not use an equation here? Okay, I have 3 questions. I'm going to take them very quickly one by one. Okay, the first question which Ashima is asking is why we are taking as e. Understand that k and e needs to be integers. Okay, now if I want to make it an integer, obviously 8 minus e by 12 needs to be an integer, right? 8, if I want 8 minus e by 12 to be an integer, the only way it is possible is, and not the only way, but one of the way it is possible is that if you put here 8, so that 8 minus 8 is 0, and 0 by 12 is 0. So this fraction will get eliminated easily. That's why I chose 8. Okay, if you want, you could have chosen 20 also, not a problem. You can choose 20 also. So 20 minus 8 would give you minus 12. You could have chosen that also, not a problem. Okay, number one. Number two, the second question is, why can't we simply write k is equal to 28 minus, how are you getting 28? Priya, can you tell me how are you getting 28? Uh, okay. Ria is asking, wouldn't it be faster to not use an equation? Can you tell me, okay, Ria, so can you tell me a better way of doing it without framing an equation? Apart from hit and trial, by the way. Apart from hit and trial, would that be helpful? Tell me. Janardhan, I don't understand the question. Do you suggest to take E is equal to NK? Why are you taking it E is equal to N times K? What is E? What is K here? Okay, Adela is asking, could we do take the other variable e? Yes, Adela, please keep in mind I took k. You can take e also, not a problem. If you want to take e to the k to the other side and solve it, you can do it. The process is universal. Please keep this in mind. Okay, it doesn't. I just took it because 25 was bigger. I didn't want to keep 25 in the denominator to work with it. But if you feel that you're more comfortable working with 25, feel free to do it. Not a problem. Okay. Okay, but yeah, how will you find out the total amount spent on KitKat? That's my question. How will you find it? Using just the first statement. The first statement just tells me that the total is 14.8. If we don't know the amount, we don't know the number of eclairs because we can assume that he. Yeah, this is a data sufficiency question. Let me be very clear. So our first job in a data sufficiency question is to first see whether we can get the answer using just one statement. Okay, if we can get the answer using one statement, then we will use that statement to get the answer. We will not combine them. Okay, just because you have statement two doesn't mean we need to count. So data sufficiency processes try solving it using individual statement first, and only if you cannot get answer using the individual statement, only then you combine it, Ria. Okay, I hope that's clear. No, Ria, we cannot consider both of them together. First job is to see whether you can get it individually. Okay. Ria, Twinkle, that's absolutely fine. So Twinkle is saying I solve this question by subtracting 4.8 from 14.8 and we get 10. That is divisible by 1.25. That's absolutely correct, Twinkle. You can use this method to get the answer. Vishwanath, Nathan, I'm coming there. Just don't worry. I'm taking questions one by one very quickly. Okay, let me just add a disclaimer again once very quickly. Guys, this is a universal method to solve any question which is dealing with one equation. So I'm telling you a method. So the reason I'm telling this method is sometimes you will not be able to figure out what values to take. Like in case of Twinkle, she figured out it's 4.8, which is good. But let's if you're not able to figure out what value you want to take, whether E should be 1, 5, 7, or K should be 1, 5. So if you're not being able to figure out, and the exam, if you want to take the risk of doing hit and trial, I would not recommend it. It's up to you. If you're good with numbers, figuring out on your own, well and good. But if you're not able to figure out, you need a way, a proper, solid, methodical way to get the answer. This is the way that I'm talking about. Okay. Vishwanath, I told you that we are getting 8 because E is equal to 8 because we are looking at 8 minus E by 12. Just focus on this part that we have here. If I want this to be, understand, I know I want K to be an integer. Okay. If I want K to be an integer, look at this part. 24 is an integer, minus 2 is an integer. So this would become an integer only when E is equal to 8. Okay. Once you put E equal to 8, you will get 0, which is an integer. And as I told you, if you want to put 20, you can put 20 also, not a problem. But once you put 20, you'll notice K will come as a negative number. Okay, any doubts? Anything at all, please ask. Okay, I don't see any more questions. Is this perfectly clear? Any guys, please mark yes if this is clear. There's one more thing which I want to talk about, which I think is a very important thing. If this is clear, please mark yes. If this is not clear, if this is clear, please mark yes. I can see a few no's. So those of you who are saying no, please ask questions. But this is a solid, according to me, a solid method to get the answer in one go. If you want to still use hit and trial, please do it. Okay, now that's a question that I wanted to cater next. When should you stop trying to find the answer with only one sentence? How did you infer? How did your inference that one sentence was enough? Okay, now Adela asked a good question, and I want to cater it. As I told you, there's one more thing which I want to talk about it. Now notice I just found out one value. Okay, so let me clear two things here. Number one, how did I decide that one statement could be sufficient? Keep in mind, when I was solving this, I was thinking that it could be sufficient. That is why I started solving it. Why did I thought it could be sufficient? Because I had an additional constraint, positive integers. I knew that they are integers, positive ones. That is why I started solving it, checking whether we can get one single answer or not. Okay. Now, the second part of the question, which I think is important to cater to, is that, and which Adela, I think, was trying to ask is, when should we stop? We got 8 and 8. Okay. But what if there are any other values possible? And that is something which I want to ask questions, people who are doing hit and trial. Okay, you got one value 8 and 8. Now in the exam, you might have some other equation. How can you be sure that this is the only possible value and how many iterations are you going to do? right? So there is another solid thing that I'm going to teach you now, up to you whether you want to use it or not. But this is not only for this question. You'll see there are a lot of questions where they ask you how many values of X are possible. You get these kind of questions, right? And you're given a single equation and you have a hard time figuring out all the values, right? Now, what you can do is the moment you get one of the values, this one, and let me write it really big now because I have to show you something. The moment you get 8 and 8, okay? And if you want to find out if there's any other value possible or not, what you can do is if I want to know the another value, you look at so if you want to find out the other value of E, you look at the coefficient of K, okay? What is the coefficient of K? K is 12. So what you can do is you can increase this by 12, get 20, okay? And if you want to find out the other value of K, you look at the coefficient of the opposite variable is 25, just subtract 25 from it, and you'll get minus 17. Now, those of you who want to check out, if you have your phone in front of you, you can very quickly check out what is the value of 25 multiplied by 20 minus 12 multiplied by 17. You can very quickly check it. You'll notice that the value that you're getting is 296. You can check it very quickly. If you want to find another value, you can again increase this. Again, increase this by 12. You'll get the next value as 32. Again, decrease this by 25, and you'll get the next value of K also. This is minus 42. So I hope this part, and you can do the opposite also, guys, just so that you don't get the wrong idea. You can do the opposite also. What I mean by that is if you have I'm rubbing this, guys. I hope this is something you have copied or taken a note of. Okay, so I'm rubbing this part very quickly. So let's say if you have 8, 8, you got one of them, and you want to know what could be the other possible value. You can, instead of increasing this, decreasing this, you can do the opposite, but the coefficient still needs to be the same. So I'm looking for E, I look at the coefficient of K, and I can subtract here also. If I'm looking for the value of K, I look at the coefficient of E, and I'll add 25 here also. So the next value would be 33 and minus 4. So you can move in either direction as long as you're adding and subtracting. Okay, now if you want to go into details, if you want to know why this method works and all those stuff, I would request you to look at the video lessons of linear equations where I have taught this in detail. Unfortunately, I cannot go too deep into it, but I would say if you can remember the method, good. If you want to know more about it, I would strongly recommend looking at the video lessons of linear equations. Okay, so there are two big main learnings here is yeah, it does not matter. Keep in mind, guys, it does not matter as long as you're working with the coefficient. So for example, if you have say 2x plus 3y is equal to 9, and I'm just taking a simple one. So one of the case could be 0 and 3, right? If you want to find another one, just increase this by 3, just decrease this by 2, and you'll get the next one. And you can do just the opposite also, you'll get the answer. So the idea is just get one of them. The moment you get one of the values, just increase and decrease simultaneously and based on the opposite coefficients, and get all the values of E and K, X and Y, whatever you're dealing with. So you will not be wasting any time at all. Harsh, obviously that's a good question that you've asked. Make sure that they're in the simplified form. Okay. If they're in the simplified form, when you're saying not co-primes, you have to make sure that they are in the simplified form. That is, they should not have anything in common between them. Then this method works smoothly without any problem. Okay, so I'm not going to spend more time on it. I hope this is perfectly clear. If there's still any doubts, I would say ask me in the chat box. I'll move on to the second statement very quickly. And so I hope this part is clear that we are getting only one unique solution here. If you notice in this first statement, I was getting 8, 8. After that, when I was moving forward, I'm getting one of them as negative. So negative is not possible. So that is why I was able to decide that there's only one unique solution, and the only unique solution has to be 8, 8, nothing else. And again, this is for this question. For other questions also, you may have multiple solutions possible. And this is the best way, according to me, to figure out what are the multiple solutions. Okay. So I hope this is clear. So statement one is sufficient. So your answer has to be either A or D. It cannot be B. It cannot be E. It cannot be C. I hope this is clear. So those of you, about 66% of you mark the answer as C. I hope now you understood why C is incorrect. Okay. Now the second statement itself is not sufficient because they are telling you you spent a total of $4.8 on Kit Kat. They're telling you about Kit Kat. So they're telling you zero point 0.6 times K is 4.8. So using this statement, you can find out just about Kit Kat, but you'll never be able to find out anything about eclairs. That's not possible. Because you don't know how much total he has spent. So this statement will not be sufficient because you're finding out KitKat, not eclairs. So you can say the answer has to be option A. Now, if you have any other questions regarding this, please post in the chat box. I'll type in and respond to it. Um, Apart from that, I don't, let's move on to the next question. So I'll summarize it very quickly in 30 seconds. Number one, keep in mind, if you have a single equation, don't just discard it by thinking it's not sufficient. Always check whether there's some constraint or additional information like positive integers, negative integers, integers. If anything is given, please try and solve it once and see whether you may be getting a unique solution or not. If you're getting a unique solution, then only mark the answer as sufficient. If you're getting more than one answer, then only discard the statement. And this is the method that I've taught you here. If you want to, I hope this you have understood this, at least how to use it. If you want to know why does this work, I would strongly suggest that you look at the video lessons of linear equations, special equations ones. Okay, with that, let me move on to the next question, guys. Here's the next question, and I am going to bring up the poll very quickly. I can see a few questions in the chat box. I'm going to type and respond to them very quickly one by one. So give me just some time. So you again have 2 minutes to solve this. Another 30 seconds, everyone. Okay, I'm going to end the poll in 10 seconds. So if there's anyone else who would want to mark the answer, please do so. Okay, before ending the poll, tell me, guys, did you find the question difficult, easy? Is it too hard to frame the equation? How did it go? Anyone? So I don't want to just show you the result now. I'll show you the result, don't worry, but I just want to know your opinion before showing the result. Was it too difficult? Okay, Ashma says difficult, hard to frame the equation. Okay. What about the others? Hard, medium. Okay. Difficult, to be frank. Okay, hard. Okay. Okay, guys, that's fine. Okay. Unable to frame second sentence. Okay. So these are slightly difficult, I would say. When I say difficult, what I mean is this is the kind of questions that you would get in the exam, especially if you're doing well in quant section. Okay. And this is the kind of question where I was talking about your ability of translating it. Now look at the answer. Now I've shown you now. It's all over the place, right? I have 37% who think the answer is D. I have 20% in A. So there, so there's, so D though looks like a winner, but it's not a clear winner, right? There's still some doubt in your mind of what you need to do. So second line, I agree, is a bit difficult. So let me show you how you can break this down. So the purpose of giving this question was just to show you if you get a complicated question, keep on breaking it down properly and how to basically write it down in paper so that it's very easy to understand. Okay, so let me read it as the way I would have done it in the exam, and I hope you can learn something from it. So the question says, in February, monthly expenditure of John was 20% more than the previous month. Okay, so I'm talking about expenditure, and there are 2 months involved. So what I do is I write down like this: Jan and Feb in that order. Okay, and I can see they're talking about February. So February is expenditure. So I'll write it down here as expenditure. Okay, so this is 20% more than the previous month. 20% more than this. Now, if you haven't done percentages, and if you don't understand what is percentage more, percentage less, then I would strongly suggest to go through them once. Okay, what you do here is you write it like this. If you see A is 20% more than B, you say if you write the expenditure, say for example as E, if you take it as capital E, then you can say that the expenditure in February is 20% more than E. Okay, or in short, you can write it as 1.2 E. I hope this part is clear. Okay. Okay. Now let's look at the second part. So this part is done. Whatever I could write it, I have written. However, monthly expenditure, okay, monthly expenditure, I don't know what that E is, so I'm writing it as EXP, expenditure as a percentage of monthly income. So now you're trying to find out a percentage of expenditure with respect to the monthly income. So now there's another thing that they're coming into picture. So this is what they're talking about: expenditure as a percentage of monthly income. So with respect to the monthly income, this percentage, okay, this is the percentage that they're talking about for February, okay, was 20% less than that of the previous month. So what they're trying to say is this expression, whatever this is, expenditure as a percent of the income, this is 20% less for February with respect to the previous month. Now, I don't know the income. I have no clue. There's nothing given about income, right? So what I would do is very quickly write down income. Now, notice one thing here. I don't have a direct relationship between the incomes. I don't know what it is. So if I want, I can assume this as, say, IJ and IF. Okay, I don't know what they are, but what I know is that the expenditure. So what is the expenditure? 1.2 E as a percent of monthly income. See, I'm breaking it down as a percent of monthly income, which is IF. So this percent is, now when I say was, is it basically mean is they're talking about the equal to sign, 20% less than the previous month. So 20% less means, and less of the income and expenditure. So E by IJ. So if I have to break it down again for you, they're saying The expenditure to income percentage in February is 20% less than that of the income to expenditure to income with respect to January. Is this part clear? Because I think for most of you, it was the second line which was difficult. So I hope I was able to break it down for you. Always try and break it down slowly and steadily to understand the question. So if they're saying expenditure as a percentage of monthly income, so you write that first. And they're saying for the February, it is 20% less than January. So you write that. Okay, so I can see for most of you, it's clear. I can see a few more no's. So I would request you to please ask me what is not clear. Ashima, you need to tell me what exactly do I need to repeat. I'm again saying it very slowly but very quickly, is that you're looking for, let me rub it down, focus on what are you comparing. You're comparing expenditure as a percent of monthly income. So expenditure as a percentage of monthly income. So this is a general thing. Okay, expenditure as a monthly income. So if I, for February, what will I write? I'll write what is the expenditure 1.2e by income of February. Okay. For Jan, what will I write? For Jan, I'll write expenditure with as a percentage of monthly income, as a percentage of monthly income. Notice. Okay. For February, it is 20% less than the previous one. So whatever this is 20% less. So that is why I'm doing 1 minus 20 by 100. Yogi, when they say expenditure, notice I don't need to explicitly mention. Did I mention explicitly in the first sentence that I'm talking about the monthly expenditure of both the terms? I wrote monthly expenditure once and it was enough for both of them. Same goes for this also. If I'm talking about monthly expenditure as a percentage of monthly income of February was less than something, I'm talking about this quantity only. So I don't need to explicitly write it down that expenditure as a percentage of monthly income of February was 20% less than the expenditure of as a person. I don't need to write that down. That is something which is implicit that you need to understand. As I understood in the first statement, we understood in the first statement. Okay, so I hope this is perfectly clear. I hope, oh, Yogi, that answers your question. And since I was talking about 20% less, that is why I wrote 1 minus 20 by 100, because I need to decrease it by 20%. But I won't solve it. Notice that I will not solve it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see what do I exactly need to find out. Okay, I'm not going to solve it just like this. So I'll see what I'm looking for. Find out John's total income in February. Okay, income in February is what percent of his total income in January. Okay, so I am basically looking for this. The income in February is what percent of the income in January. So with respect to January, so I need IF by IJ. That is what I'm looking for. Okay, so I have one equation with me. So obviously I should be able to understand that I may be able to get the answer using this statement. Now this can be written as 1 minus 20 by 100 is basically 1 minus 0.2. So I can write this as 0.8. I'm doing the calculation on top for those of you who can see it. So I can write this as directly as 0.8. Notice the 100 and the E is getting cancelled out. And I need IF by IJ. So I can bring IF here, which will give me IF by IJ is equal to 1.2 by 0.8. Okay. Priya, E by I stands for expenditure by income. Expenditure as a percentage of income. Because Priya, I assumed the income of in January as IJ. That's why I wrote it as E by IJ. I assumed E and IJ. There was nothing given in the question. So I had to assume some variables. Otherwise, I would not have been able to solve it. Right? So that is why, since nothing was mentioned about the income, so I took it as IJ and IF. Now, once I have got the 1.2 by 0.8, I can multiply this by 100 because I'm looking for this only. So I can multiply this by 100 and find out my answer. Now, if you cancel this by 4, you would get 3 by 2, and this 50 would give you 150%. So the answer in this case would be option E. So I'll again pause for 30 seconds. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, Priya, you need to understand if I'm saying something is 20% less, okay, the 20% less or the 20% more is always with respect to something. Okay, so what I mean by that is what you can do is if you're taking if you're taking February expenditure to income and you're saying it is 20% less than the previous month, then the previous month has to be Jan, Priya. Okay, so I'm not taking just because I'm taking it because it's given in the question. Okay. Okay, Harsh is asking, see, Harsh, you're asking the question which I told you in the starting only. Yes, if you want, you can take numbers if you want to solve it, but you'll have to take two numbers. Okay, you'll have to take two numbers, one for income, one for expense, and then solve it. Now, that is another thing that you should be aware of before doing it. Okay, Ria, we are canceling E because that's common both sides, and we can cancel it, right? So if I know it's a positive integer, so it's a positive number, not an integer. So E is a positive number, so I can remove it from both sides. Okay, any other questions? Ashim, I did repeat the framing of equations. I did tell you it's expenditure by income. Expenditure by income is compared. I'll repeat it very quickly. Expenditure by income. Please note this part. This is being compared. Expenditure by income of February. So expenditure of income of February and the previous month. Look at my table here, what I've created here. Expenditure to income is 1.2 by IF. Expenditure to income for Jan is E by IF. Okay. So 1.2 E by IF, E by IJ. This is being compared, and I've been told that February's is 20% less. So I decreased this by 20%. So I wrote it as 1 minus 20 by 100. So February's is 20% less. If you don't if you have a problem, and this is for everybody, guys, if you have a problem in understanding, say, how did I write 1 minus 20 by 100, how did I write 1 plus 20 by 100, I would strongly suggest that you look at percentages, because this is something that you should know before doing solving this question. Okay, so this, I would say, is a 700 level question, just because of that line, which makes it difficult. Apart from that, if you're able to crack that line, the simplification, I don't think is that difficult to solve. And frankly, if finding this difficult, then that, guys, that mean you need to work more on your percentages. You need to work more on translating, improve your translation skills. Okay. Okay, so I don't see any more questions on the chat pod. So I'm going to move on to the next one. But the idea here is, guys, just very quickly, please keep in mind that if you do, obviously this can be solved taking numbers, but if if there's something not given, the idea was here to tell you is you take it as variables. If for example, income is not given, you take them as IJ, IF, X, Y, what do you want to take it, because at the end of the day, you would get your answer. But it should be very clear what are you looking for. For me, it was very clear I'm looking for this. If you miss this, then you might make a mistake. You might not know what you're trying to find out. You'll just have an equation with you and you'll keep on wondering what to do with it. Okay. Okay, now let's go to the third question. Here's the third one, guys. Again, this is a 700 level question. Ashima, you need to, so if there's a question Ashima is asking, how do you improve your translation skill? One is constantly, obviously, you need to first of all work on your uh, theoretical skills, conceptual skills, basically, because if you don't, and it's not only for you in general, I'm saying if a student is not able to understand what does 20% more, 20% less, uh, A with respect to B, if you're not able to understand these terms, then you will never be able to solve the question correctly. So first is conceptual knowledge. Second is you need to see these kind of questions more the way it is being solved, and you need to replicate it. Like, for example, all the questions that I teach in GMAT is what I do is I show them the way I'm doing it now. And obviously I show them all the methods there. In here, this I'm talking about X, so I'm taking X. But if there's a better way to solve it, I talk about that also. So you need to see it, replicate it. But first of all, conceptual knowledge, guys. If that is not there, it will be slightly difficult to improve, especially if you're targeting 48, 49, 48 plus, basically. So here's the poll for you, and I'm going to mute myself for another 2 minutes. All the best, guys. Okay, very few responses, so I'll give you another 30 seconds. So those of you are still doing it, you have 30 seconds more. The rest of you, if you want to look at your answers once again, you can do that. Okay, another 10 seconds, then I'm going to end the poll. Guys, I would encourage you to mark your answer. Keep in mind in the exam, you have to mark something. So if you are not sure what to do, just take a good guess, I would say. Okay, I'm ending the poll now. Okay, so 44% of you think the answer should be E. 24% of you think the answer should be C. And I have about 20% who think the answer should be B. Obviously, I have a few A's and D's, but that's very less. So, guys, once again, what do you think of this question? What was difficult about this? Which part did you find hard to translate? Was this a difficult question? Very difficult one? Okay. So yeah, you're saying the whole question difficult to translate. Then see, that's a clear indicator here that you need to work more on word problems. Guys, you will get a lot of questions from word problems. About 40% question, 30 to 40%, in fact, slightly more might be from word problems only. Okay. So it's very, very, very important for you to improve in it. Okay. I was just saying easy basing on the method you explained. Okay. If you found it easy, very good. Okay. Okay, Alberto says this was difficult. Priya, Adela, they are saying that it is medium. The second statement is slightly difficult, I would say. I think, Ashima, you mean, when you say last line, I mean the second statement. Okay, so guys, in this question only, I believe the only thing which I tried to make it slightly difficult was the second statement, because I've seen people falter in that part. Weber, very good. That's a good thing that you kept that in mind, that you have to keep in mind that it needs to be an integer. Very good. So see, whatever I'm giving you, you can apply whatever you have learned in the first and second question. If you don't apply it, you might make a mistake. Okay. So as I was telling you, the second statement is what is slightly difficult. And the question was created keeping in mind that students will fall for C trap and E trap. So there are two traps set here, and about, as you can see, 68% of you fell for the trap. Okay, so the answer is neither C, the answer is neither E. Ashmi, that's okay if you're a beginner stage, that's absolutely fine. I think this can be an eye-opener for you. This will tell you that you need to start your preparation methodically. Okay. So let's get started, guys. Let's read the statement and see what we can do with it. Okay, on Sunday, Nana had only apples and oranges in a fruit basket. Okay, so there's a fruit basket which consists of only apple and oranges. If you want to write it, you can write something, or you can just keep that in mind. Okay, at breakfast, she ate 1/8 of the apples. Okay, now the moment I read this, I know I'm being kind of forced to take a variable. So I would say, okay, let's assume total apples to be A. Okay, so in breakfast, so let me write down as BK only as short. She's eating 1/8 of the apple. Okay, so A by 8, 1/8 of A. Okay, now if she did not buy any fruits on Sunday, and if she did not eat an apple and orange in parts, so this kind of information basically tells you that there's no more addition in the fruit basket, and she's not eating any apple or oranges half. So you have to assume that whatever she's eating it fully. Okay, and apples are whole as such. Okay, the question is, did she have more than 20 fruits with her at the beginning of the day? So they are basically asking, in the fruit basket, whatever that fruit basket is, where there are only apple and oranges, is this value, the sum of this, is greater than 20 or not. Okay, that is what we are trying to find out. Now, before moving on to the question, there's one more thing that I would have done, which is correctly pointed out by Webber, is that I would have written down somewhere that they are apple and oranges. I'm not eating it in parts. So that means my apple and oranges, if I write them as OR, they are basically positive integers. Okay. Number two, the moment I see this, that in breakfast, she is eating 1/8 of it. What inference can I make about A? There's one inference implicit again can be made once I see that they are positive integers and she's eating 1/8 of it. Can anyone tell me what inference can I make about A? Anyone? Yes, Vaibhav, that's absolutely correct. One inference that we can make is that apples and Yogi, Neeraj, all of you are correct, Vivian, sorry, all of you are correct. Very good. That we can infer that A is a multiple of 8. So that means that the value of A could be anything. It could be 8, 16, 24, 32, anything. I don't know what that is. Okay, so either you write it down or you leave it, that's okay, but make sure that you write it down somewhere that A has to be a multiple of 8. If it's not a multiple of 8, I won't get this as an integer, and I want this to be an integer too, because she's eating all of them whole. She's not eating anything in parts, so this has to be an integer too. Very good. Okay, now that I've made all the inferences that are possible, I'll go to my first statement. So statement one is, at the beginning of Sunday, of the day on Sunday, she had two more oranges than apple. Okay, well and good. So I'll frame an equation. Oranges is two more than apples. Okay, that's all I can say. But I don't know anything else. I don't know the exact value of A. Okay, I know it's a multiple of 8. So if you, even if you want to do an hit and trial and check very quickly whether the number of fruits can be 20 or not, you can say, okay, what is the minimum value of A? It could be 8. So number of oranges could be 10. Is it more than 20? No, it is not. Okay, if this is 16, this would be 18. Is this more than 20? Yes. So notice you're getting two contradictory answers from statement 1. The moment you get two contradictory answers from a statement, you can discard it. You can say the answer cannot be A. That's I'm sure of. Okay, the answer cannot be D. Because in one case, I'm getting it less than 20. In one case, I'm getting more than 20. Is this part clear, guys? Please mark, let me bring up the poll very quickly. Please mark yes if this is clear. So A could be 8, A plus oranges could be 18, it could be 34, I don't know what it is. Okay, great, I can see it's clear to everyone, very good. Okay, so I'll discard the statement. I'll move on to the second statement. Now the second statement is, on Sunday, she ate 60% as many apples in breakfast as she ate in lunch. Now, a lot of people get confused with this as many as kind of a statement. So I thought, let me give it to you and let me just tell you in general, what does that mean? So I'm going to the next slide. I'll come back here again, but I just want to explain this part a bit. So I'm taking the next slide once. Now you might come across a statement like this. Okay, I'm taking a simpler statement as of now. Twice as many A as B. You might come across a statement like this. As many, something, as. So notice here also as many, something, as something. Okay, let me write it like this, apples in breakfast. So this is your A, this is your B, and obviously as many is given, and you'd be given something here. I've written twice, it could be something, it could be 60% also. The idea is to break it down, read it very slowly. Twice as many A, read till this part. Twice as many A means that A is twice of something. Okay, A is twice of something, twice as many, a double of A, double of A is present. Now, twice as many A means A is twice of something, and the something is always given here. So that something is B. So I would write it as A is equal to 2B. Okay, so if I have, say, X as many A as B, what you do is you simply say A is X times B. Now this X could be anything. It could be twice, it could be 60%, it could be 80%, 4 times, 10 times, Whatever is it does not matter. Okay, so I hope this part is clear, guys. So twice as many A as B means you simply take the twice part here and write it. So I've generalized it for you. You can make a note of it. In the exam, if you get it, you can directly jump on and write it like this. Okay, instead of wasting time thinking, okay, what could be the meaning of it? Okay, I hope you have noted this down so that I can go to the previous part. So in this case also, when I see the second statement, what I'm going to do is, what I'll do is I'll see 60% as many apples in breakfast. So I'll say apples in breakfast. Now I know how many apples she had in breakfast. See, in the question stem, it was given to me that she ate A by 8. So I can say as many apples in breakfast is 60%, which is 3 by 5 of as much as she ate in lunch. So apples in lunch. So I'm writing it as A capital L. Now notice if I solve this, I'll get AL is equal to 5A by 24. Okay. Now what can I infer from this? What can I infer about A from this statement? Anyone, very quickly? If you've understood this, you should be able to tell me very quickly what can we infer? By just looking at this, what can we infer about A? Keep in mind that she's eating apples and oranges in as a whole, okay? Nothing in parts. I'm giving you these hints also. So what can we infer about A? Come on, guys, you can give the answer. Yep, very good, guys. Very good. Absolutely good that the minimum value of A is 24 for it to be an integer. Very good. It's a multiple of 24. All of you are correct. So a better way, obviously, is the way is to simply say you're looking for more than 20. Okay, and the minimum value of minimum has to be 24. Now, if apple is 24, I don't care how many oranges are in it. I really don't care because how even if it's 1 or 0 doesn't matter. The sum of this becomes greater than 20. And since this becomes greater than 20, I can say that in the fruit basket on Sunday, she had more than 20 fruits. So the answer in this case would be option B. If you have any doubts, guys, please feel free to ask. Again, keep in mind, these questions, as you notice, is not difficult. Notice whatever things I told you in the starting, I'm applying them. Number one, I'm writing down everything properly. Which variable do I take? What is the meaning of that variable? Could it be an integer? If you think about these things through in the starting only by taking 1 minute also, okay, a 1.5 minute also, that's fine because you'll be spending less time on these statements. You will not take a lot of time because I know I had inferred that A has to be a multiple of 8. I inferred it's a positive integer. So when I come to this statement, I can very quickly look at it and say, hey, the minimum has to be 24. It will take me about 15 seconds to say that. Obviously, the inference part is important, but now I've also told you how to do that. I've told you how you can write this quickly. Okay, so guys, if this is perfectly clear, please mark yes so that I can move on to the next question. So the main learning here is number one, once again, please make inferences like whether it's an integer or not. Number two, please don't forget the implicit constraints like positive integers. And number three, obviously, I told you about as many as, so keep this in mind so that you don't have to waste time in the exam or write the incorrect equation. Okay, so three solid learnings in this question. Okay, so I can see most of you are saying yes, which is good. So let's go to another question. Let's shift gears a bit and look at a number properties question. Those of you who are having a problem can put it in the chat box and I will help you out. So I'll respond to you in the chat box, guys. So if you have any question, please ask. And here's the poll for this question. Another 30 seconds, guys, then I will end the poll. Oh, guys, I'm really sorry. There's a mistake in the question. I'm really sorry. I wanted to ask. Sorry about it. I'm looking for the tens digit. I just noticed now. I'll give you another 2 minutes, guys. That's okay. Just find out me the tens digit of x. I just looked at your responses and realized that something has to be amiss. I need to know what is the tens digit, not the hundredths digit. Apologies for that. I'll reset the poll and I'll give you another 2 minutes. I'm looking for the tens digit. So most of your calculation has to remain the same. You just now need to focus on the tens, not the hundredths digit. Another 30 seconds, guys. And apologies again, once again, for this thing. Okay, 10 seconds, then I'll end the poll. Okay, I'm ending the poll now. So tell me, how did you find this question, guys? Was it difficult? Was it easy? It's slightly different. Obviously, there's some concept that is involved here. But was it too difficult? So about 42% of you think the answer should be A. And I have a few people who are saying that the answer should, 28% about think the answer should be C. And a few B's also. B's and E's, in fact, and 10%. So was this too difficult? Okay. Medium, hard, difficult. Okay. How many of you know the concept of quotient and remainder, guys? How many of you know the concept of quotient and remainder? Dividend, quotient, divisor, remainder. Let me bring up a poll very quickly. Kindly mark yes if you have some idea what is a remainder, what is a quotient, what is a divisor, what is a dividend, if you know it. So if you know division, you must be knowing what is a divisor, dividend, remainder, quotient. Okay, I can see about 93% of you think know it, 94 in fact now. So okay, that's great. So in this question, there's only one thing that is required here, not a lot of conceptual knowledge, guys. To solve this question, you'll notice that I'm talking about a remainder, okay? When nx is divided by 5, 850, it leaves a remainder. So in those cases, there's one concept that you should know is that when n is divided, say if n is a number, and if it's say divided by a divisor d, then we write n is equal to q times d plus r. Okay, where q is the quotient, r is the remainder, d is the divisor, and n obviously is the number, sometimes known as a dividend. Okay, so I'm just giving you a random example here just to help you out. So, and I'm taking a very simple example. So think about it in this way. So your n is 13, your quotient q is 6, your divisor is 2, and your remainder is 1. So this is how we usually write it if there's a remainder. Okay, and this is what I'm going to kind of use here to solve this question. Okay, so again, I'll start from the starting. Obviously, it says an integer x, and again, this is tens digit. Let me make the changes. Tens digit. X is an integer that lies between 99 and 1000. So x is between 99 and 1000. I also keep a note whether I need to put an equal to sign or not. So since I'm saying it's just saying between, then that means it's exactly between. It does not include 99 and 1000. Okay, so I can say the first value could be 100. Okay, the last value could be 999. Anything is possible. If you want to write this down, you can, or if you don't do it, that's also fine. But the major inference is it's a 3-digit number. Okay, I need to find out the tens digit of x. So if x, and I'm removing this because I need more space, kind of. So I'm removing this part. So if I want to find out the tens digit, I can say, okay, x could be something like this. I don't need to use it, but just for visualization, I can say, okay, I'm looking for b. I need this. If I can find this out, that's enough. Okay, so far I think it should be easy. Let's go to the first statement. The first statement is when x is divided by any one of 5, 8, and 50, it leaves the same remainder. Now, there are various ways to solve this. I'll add a disclaimer here now only before somebody comes up and say, hey, there's an LCM way, that way, this way. But I'm going to just assume that you don't know anything and you're doing it for the first time. And all you know is n is equal to q times d plus r. Okay, that is all you know. So if x is divided by, say, 5, it's leaving the same remainder. So I can write it like this. X is the number. Okay, this is your x. I don't know the quotient, so I'm writing it as q1. Divisor is 5. And I don't know the remainder, so I'll write this as r. Okay. Similarly, I can write x when divided by 8 is also leaving the same remainder. So I can say q2, again, I don't know what that is, 8, but the remainder is the same. And x, in fact, can also be written like this, q3 times 50 plus r. Because when x is divided by 5 is the same remainder, when divided by 8 is the same remainder, when divided by 50 is the same remainder. So I can use this and write it like this. Okay, is the equation part clear? Kindly mark yes if this is clear, guys. So I'm just using n is equal to qd plus r. I don't know the quotients, so I'm writing it as q1, q2, q3. The remainder is the same, so I'm writing all of them as r. Okay. Now, notice one interesting thing, okay? If I take r to the other side, and let me first write it down so that you are able to visualize it. So can I say that x is 5 times, if x is 5 times something, x is 8 times something, x is 50 times something, then that means x minus r is a multiple of 5 also, 8 also, and 50 also. Can I say that? Yes, no. Let me add a poll. Can I say that x minus r is a multiple of 5, 8, and 50, all three of them? I can say that, right? It's a multiple. Okay. Now notice, focus on the keyword multiple. Okay, it's a multiple of all three numbers. Now, if I ask you, hey, can you tell me if x minus r is a multiple of 5, 8, and 50, what is the lowest multiple possible for x minus r? What is the lowest common multiple that is possible? And when I'm saying the word lowest common multiple, I hope, very good, Neeraj, that's good. What do I mean by that? What am I basically trying to look at? Lowest multiple. It's a multiple of 5, 8, 50. Very good, Vaibhav, Ashok, you're all correct. So what you're basically saying is that if it's a multiple of three numbers, I can definitely say that it is a multiple of, say, you basically take the lowest common multiple. So the lowest common multiple, and I'm just doing it here. Let me write this properly, clearly. So the lowest common multiple would be 5 of 5 to the power 1, 2 cube. Okay, 2 to the power 1 times 5 square is basically 5 square times 2 cube, which is 8 times 25, which is 200. So I can say the lowest common multiple of x minus r is 200, which means I can express my x minus r as 200 times something. So I'm writing it as q dash. Okay. Now notice it is a multiple of 5 also, multiple of 8 also, multiple of 50 also, not a problem. Everything being satisfied. Okay. So now what I can say is, since I'm looking for x at the 10th digit of x, I can say x is equal to 200 q dash. I don't know what q dash is plus r. Okay. This is what I can infer. But did I miss something, guys? Did I miss something? Because it seems I cannot get my answer. So is there something which I missed? Can I still get my answer? There's one small thing which I did not talk about. Can anyone point out what did I miss? There's one thing which I did not talk about yet. That is very crucial for us to get our answer. Okay, let me ask you the question. If x is divided by 5, 8, and 50, and it leaves the same remainder, what are the possible values of the remainder? Very good. That's very good, guys. Remainder smaller than all the numbers. Always keep this in mind. The remainder is always less than the divisor. Okay. So if I have 5, 8, and 50, and I'm getting the same remainder in all case. Okay. So the remainder has to be a single digit number. So and less than 5. So the remainder could be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It cannot exceed this. It cannot exceed because if I take the remainder as say 7, that's not possible. 7 is not possible because the remainder cannot be more than any of the divisors. So that is something, if you have missed, you might say statement 1 is not sufficient and end up making a mistake. So see, another implicit inference that I have to make here, that the remainder, and for this your conceptual knowledge should be good. You should keep this in mind, that the remainder is less than the quotient. So now notice one thing, the remainder that I'm adding here will affect the units digit. It's not going to affect the tens digit. If you notice carefully, whatever be the value of q, if there are two zeros, and if I multiply something with q, I'll get a number which will be something like this, 0, 0, and whatever I multiply q with 2. So for example, let me give you an example. If q dash is say 7, just giving a random example, okay? So that would be 1400, right? But there'll always be two zeros at the end, whatever value of q you take, okay? Now the remainder has to be a single digit number. So it's going to affect this single digit. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't care. But obviously, really sorry, it cannot be 7. It's a 3-digit number. Really sorry, I should have taken a smaller number. Let me take 2. Okay, let's take Q2 as 2. So you'll get 400. Okay, now the remainder can be a single digit number, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you put it, the units digit is going to get affected here. This is intact and this 0 is not changing. This tens digit will always remain unaffected. So I can say, I don't care what the value of q dash is. I don't care what the value of r is, whether it is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The tens digit is not going to be affected. It's always going to be 0. That is why statement 1 is sufficient, because I can say the value of b is going to be 0. So the answer, I can say that statement 1 is sufficient. So the answer has to be either A or D. Okay, is this part clear? Kindly mark yes. I'm trying to break it down and teach you everything. So if this is clear, please mark yes. Okay, great. So see here, conceptual knowledge plus using variables properly, writing them properly can help you get the answer. This is slightly difficult, I know, but if you're able to make inferences like these, the one that I've done here, you'll get the answer correctly. So the answer has to be either A or D. Now let's look at the second statement. The second statement is, when x is divided by 50, the remainder is 4. Okay, so I can write x as 50 q something q3 plus 4. Okay, this is what I can write. But now I don't know the value of q3. That's very important to understand. Okay, it's quite possible that the value, say for example, of q3 is say, let me take 3. Say for example, if I take it as 3, I'll get 150 plus 4. So in this case, I would say b is equal to 4. Okay, but let's say if I take the value of q3 as 4, I'll get the value of b as 0. Notice I'm getting two different contradictory answers. The moment I get contradictory answers, I can say that this statement is not sufficient. So the answer finally would be option A. Okay, I can see all of you have marked yes. So I think this is perfectly clear, which is very good, guys. Yes, Sumit, that's correct. The 10th digit can be 5 or 0. So we can eliminate this and say that statement A is sufficient. Okay, so guys, the reason behind giving this question again is to tell you conceptual knowledge is very important. You have to have it. Second is if you frame the equation the right way, you'll definitely get the answer. Okay, there's a faster way of doing this, but again, that is something not in the scope of this webinar now, so I'm not going into it. Maybe we can discuss it some other time. But in the exam, if you get something like this, you can always frame equations like this and get the answer. Okay, but it's very important that you remember the methodology of doing it. You cannot think about it, some of you can obviously, but you cannot just keep on wondering what to do next. So once you have learned this question, once you have learned the methodology, make sure that you don't forget it. If you forget it, then the purpose of learning all this will be lost. Okay, okay, now let's go to the fifth question, guys. Here's the fifth one. It's slightly easy, I would say. I would say a 650 level question. Give it a shot. I've opened the poll for you. Another 30 seconds, then I'll end the poll. Okay, I'm going to end the poll now. So those of you who haven't marked your answer, please do so very quickly. So yeah, I've given you about 2.5 minutes to solve this. Okay. Okay, so about 57% of you think the answer should be D, and about 21 and 10% of you think the answer should be A and B. I have few C's and E's, but that's fine. Okay, I hope you understand the concept of multiples. Okay, we were just solving a question. I think the last question where we were last question only we were dealing with multiples. So, for example, if I ask you what is the multiple of 2, you can end up saying that it is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, like this, right? You can write down all the multiples, right? So in this question, I don't know what is the, and in general, what you write it as n times k. If you were looking for a multiple, you end up writing the number times k as the general representation. So in the way we write even numbers as 2n, if you're dealing with multiples, we write it as n times k, where k is any integer, positive integer. I'll talk about it, don't worry. So now in this question, it says a sequence S consists of 7 consecutive multiples of a positive number. Okay, 7 multiples of a positive number, but they're not telling whether from where are we starting? Are we starting from the starting? Are we starting from the middle? We don't know anything. Okay, we have no idea. Okay, the other thing is whenever you see the word consecutive, and you can take this as a learning, you can use it if you want to. I try to write my numbers symmetrically. Okay, so what do I mean by that? So once I see 7 consecutive multiples of a positive integer, I say, okay, let the positive integer be a. Let my integer be a or n, whatever you want to take it. Okay, let's take it as n because I was writing it as n only. Let's take it as n. Okay, so I'll say a multiple, one of the multiples could be kn, k times n. And again, k could be anything. Okay, k times n. Now there's 7 consecutive multiples I need to write. So what I do is I write it like this: k plus 1n, k minus 1n, k plus 2n, k minus 2n, k plus 3n, k minus 3n. So now we have 7 consecutive multiples of the positive integer n. Okay, whatever that integer is, I don't know, but I have written it all in a consecutive manner: minus 3, minus 2, minus 1, k plus 1, k plus 2, k plus 3. So this maintains the symmetry, and it will be very easy for you, not only in this question, but in general sequence and series questions. If you're solving, once you start learning arithmetic progression, geometric progressions, those kind of stuff, writing in this way makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I've written this down. And they're telling us an increasing sequence. So I've written it in the form of an increasing sequence only: minus 3, minus 2, minus 1. So that's not a problem. What I need to find out is that, and good thing is they also tell me in positive. So that's good. So I know this is positive. N is positive. I need to find out whether the last term of S is a multiple of 3. Now, if I look at my last term, this is my last term. So what I need to find out is whether k plus 3 multiplied by n is a multiple of 3 or not. Now, again, before jumping onto these statements, what I prefer to do is make certain inferences, as I've already told you. So when I look at this, I think in this way: okay, for this whole thing to be a multiple of 3, one scenario which is possible is that n is a multiple of 3. For example, if n is itself, say, for example, 9, okay, then all the multiples would obviously, all the multiples that I've written here would be a multiple of 3. I don't care what k is. Okay, so n could be a multiple of 3 itself. Okay. The other possibility obviously is that k plus 3 is a multiple of 3. If k plus 3 is also a multiple of 3, then also it will work. So for example, if k plus 3 turns out to be, say, again, same example, you could take it as 9. It will work for me, right? That's not a problem, as long as a multiple of 3. The third possibility is obviously both of them are multiple of 3. Both multiple of 3, okay? So that's also going to work for me. So keeping this in mind, that when I'm dealing with multiple of 3, it could be either of these three things. Either n could be a multiple of 3, k plus 3 could be multiple of 3, or both of them could be multiple of 3. As long as one of them is, I'm okay with it. That's the basic inference. Okay. Now with this in mind, I'll work with the first statement. Now the first statement is the arithmetic mean of S is a multiple of 3. Okay, good. Arithmetic mean. Now, can anyone tell me how do I find the arithmetic mean of this? Sumit, yes, that's very good. That's a good thing that you're saying. Let me write it down. That's an absolutely good thing. Now, Sumit is saying if k plus 3 is a multiple of 3, then that means k has to be a multiple of 3, which is absolutely correct, Sumit. K has to be a multiple of 3. So for example, k has to be like 3 plus 3 or 6 plus 3. Okay, k has to be a multiple of 3. Otherwise, if k is not a multiple of 3, k plus 3 won't be a multiple of 3. So that's good. Okay, now I was asking, how do you find out the arithmetic mean? Can anyone tell me very quickly? Let me see. I can see some responses. Yogi says adding all divided by 7. Good. Sumit says kn, middle digit, is the mean. Yes. So I wrote this deliberately, guys. And the reason is, which Sumit has correctly pointed out, is that when you're looking for average or arithmetic mean, obviously what you're saying is correct. You can add all of them up. You can divide it by 7. You'll get the answer. But if it's an odd number, you can simply say the middle value is the mean. The middle value is always the mean. So that's perfectly okay with us. So we can say k times n is a multiple of 3. And again, if you're adding it also, those of you are wondering if you're adding it up, I just want to make sure that all for them also it's very clear. If you take n common, and if you add up all these terms, you'll notice plus 3 minus 3 plus 2 minus 2 plus 1 minus 1, they will all get cancelled out. And you'll be left with 7k's. So this is the sum. And when you divide it by 7, you'll end up getting n times k only. So for those of you who did like this, you'll also get the same answer. Don't worry. But that's a very quick way of inferring that the middle term has to be the mean. So mark it. Okay. Now, if the mean is a multiple of k times n is a multiple of 3, notice there are a lot of possibilities. N is a multiple of 3. If n is a multiple of 3, is k plus 3 times n a multiple of 3? The answer is yes. Okay. The second scenario is K is a multiple of 3. If K is a multiple of 3, I told you if K is a multiple of 3, K plus 3 would also be a multiple of 3, second case. So I again getting the answer as yes. I'm getting again the answer as yes. And even if both of them are multiple of 3, I don't mind as long as one of them is, right? So from this, I can say that statement 1 is sufficient because I'll definitely have K plus 3 times N as a multiple of 3. Any doubts, anyone? Please ask. I hope this part is perfectly clear. Let me just, so here's a yes and no poll. If this is perfectly clear, kindly mark yes. So if statement 1 is sufficient, the answer has to be either A or D. Okay. Now let's look at the second statement. I don't see any questions on the chat box. I'm going to the next one. The first term is a multiple of 3. So K minus 3 times N is a multiple of 3. And guys, by now I'm sure you've understood the first one. The second one also must have been clear. Again, same scenario. N could be a multiple of 3. Your answer would still be yes. If K minus 3 is a multiple of 3, that is only possible when K is a multiple of 3. So second scenario, that K is a multiple of 3 also works for you. Okay, and if both of them are a multiple of 3, that is also not a problem for us. So I can say even statement 2 is sufficient, statement 1 is sufficient, both of them are sufficient. So the answer in this case would be option D. Okay, if you have any doubts, please ask. If this is perfectly clear, I can see 100%. Yes, that's absolutely good. That's good. Okay. So I don't see any doubts here. So I am going on to the next question. Here's the next question. And this is going to be a last one for the day. We are running slightly out of time. And I would say this is the easiest of the lot, guys. Okay, I've already given you 2.5 minutes. I'll give you another 30 seconds more. That's all. I know it's a lengthy question, but believe me, it's very easy the moment you understand what you need to find out. This is a 650 level question, a medium question. It's just the text that is a lot to read, nothing else. Okay, 10 seconds more. Okay, ending the poll now. So I have a mixed response, 33, 33, a split between B and C. About 22% of you think the answer should be A. Okay. Tell me, what part of the question did you find difficult? Was it the last part where I was talking about the ratio? Was it difficult to understand what are we talking about here? So now that we know the accuracies, now the attempts, let me ask you. Mark yes if you found difficulties in understanding the first part, the last part basically where I'm talking about the ratios. Or you can type in the chat box also. Okay. Okay, so most of you are saying that's it. That's the part that's difficult to understand. Okay, that's fine. Let me very quickly discuss it. And you'll realize by the time that you're done with it, this was actually a very easy question to solve. Okay, let's read it very quickly together. Two trains, T1, T2 arrive at station at 1 p.m. So they are giving me a timeline of 1 p.m. Uh, I don't have any idea what's going to happen next. So I'll just mark 1 p.m. somewhere here like this. 1 p.m. station S. Okay, station S. SS. After a halt of half an hour, train T1 left the station at 1:30 p.m. Okay, so at 1:30 p.m. Again, let me write it like this: 1:30 p.m. T1 left, and the speed was 30 miles per hour in a straight line towards north from station S. Okay, so now they are giving me a direction. So what you can do is you can draw a line like this. Say, hey, this is station S at 1:30 p.m. T1 has left. Okay, at the speed of 30 mph. Assuming this is not, for example, in this case, for station S, okay? Now, for train 2 departs at 2 p.m. So the moment when I see this, there's a one small thing which I like to do. You can do that later also, but if the calculation is easy, that's something that you can keep it with yourself, or just at least note down that at 2 p.m., at least note it down. At 2 p.m., T1 has reached a certain point, okay, from the starting point. Okay, so T1 has covered some distance in 30 minutes. That's one thing which I write down very quickly so that I don't forget about it. And then what happening is T2 is moving in the opposite direction at the speed of 100 miles per hour. Okay, and this is happening at 2 p.m. for T2. So till this part, it's perfectly done. Now, if both of them are traveling indefinitely, so they're just moving on. Okay, this train started at 1:30 and it's moving. T2 has started moving at 2 o'clock. It's moving in its own direction. They're going. Now, the last and the crucial part. They're talking about what is the ratio. So I'm talking about a ratio. So I'll make a division sign. What is in the numerator? The ratio of time it takes T2. So they're talking about the time of T2. Time of T2 basically to cover 1/3 of the distance that T1 has traveled. So how much time T2 is taking to cover 1/3 of the distance that T1 has traveled. Okay. And the second part is the time it takes T2. So again, I'm looking at time taken by T2 to cover the thrice the distance, and obviously its speed is more, so at certain point of time it will be able to cover more distance, so thrice the distance of T1. Okay, so in both the cases I'm looking for a time with respect to T2. So I want to know how much time will T2 take to cover certain part of the distance. Okay, now once I've understood this, I know I'm looking for two times. I'll assume them as something, say for example, small t and capital T. Okay, small t is for this time, 1/3 one, and capital T is for the second time. Okay, there's one more thing that I would do. Since I'm writing it as T and I'm writing it with respect to T2, what I'm basically doing is I'm setting up my timeline at 2 p.m. So I'm starting from 2 p.m. because T2 is starting from 2 p.m. And it's very, very, very important that when you're comparing two trains or two cars, whatever, make sure that you bring them to the same timeline. Okay, so you can say if I'm T2 is starting at 2 p.m. from scratch. From this point it's starting, and at 2 p.m. if I'm traveling at 30 miles per hour and I'm traveling for 30 minutes, then that means I'm covered 15 miles already. So T1 is already covered 15 miles. Okay. So at 2 p.m., T1 is 15 miles away from T2 and they are both starting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my equation. Now I know what I need in the numerator. I know what I need in the denominator. I need small t by t. So what I'll say, let's assume, if I'm assuming small t as the time it takes T2 to cover 1/3 distance, I'll say uh, distance is basically speed multiplied by time. So I'll say 100 multiplied by t. This is the distance covered by T2. This is 1/3 of the distance covered by T1. And notice I'm talking about from 2 p.m. So T1 has already covered 15 miles, and at a speed of 30 miles per hour, if in T time starting from 2 p.m., this train would cover 30 times T. So in T time, T2 is covering 100 times T, T1 is covering 30 times T, and it had already covered 15. So the total distance T1 has covered is 15 plus 30 times T. Okay. Now this will give me the value of small t. Okay. So this is 270. So 15 by 270. You can cancel by 3 first, and then you can cancel by 5 to get 1 by 18. So I've got the value of small t, 1 by 18. Okay. Now second part obviously is easy. It's the same story, capital T. 100 times capital T. The distance covered by T2 is thrice the distance covered by T1. So how much is T1 covering? T1 is covering, it had already covered 15 miles, and in capital T time, it will cover 30 times T. So I'll get 100T is equal to 45 plus 90T. Okay. 10T is equal to 45, or T is equal to, if you want to cancel, you can say 9 by 2. So you'll get 9 by 2. Okay, I hope so far so good. So T by capital T, you'll flip the ratio, you'll get, you can cancel it out and get 1 by 81. So the correct answer in this case will be option A. Now I've spoken a lot. It was almost like a monologue. So I just want to make sure that this is perfectly clear. So guys, please mark yes if this is clear. They were just asking you find out the time when T2 covers 1/3 of the distance covered by T1 and T2 covers thrice the distance. The main catch, main important thing in time and distance questions, especially when two entities are traveling at different time, the first thing that you need to do is bring them to the same time. So I made sure that at 2 p.m. I know how much T1 has covered and from where T2 is starting. So this small t and capital T is always with respect to T2. Okay, so from 2 p.m., both of them are traveling small t. From 2 p.m., both of them are traveling capital T. Okay, so I hope this is perfectly clear. This is slightly difficult, I would know, but I hope you understand the moment you translate it properly, it's not very difficult to solve. It's not that difficult. So guys, I'll pause here because we've already way past our 90 minutes limit. It's almost 2 hours now. So I'll pause here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share the PDF with you. It has another question. I would want you to try and solve it. I've shared it with you. You should be able to see it on your screen. Apart from that, I also want to talk about, like, let's say if you like the session, if you want to learn more about it, I would say try out GMAT Quiz once, guys. We are running a sale now, and it will be there till tomorrow, 12:30 p.m. IST. So if you want to learn these methodologies, if you want to learn the way we are solving questions, okay, if you want to learn them like this, get it reinforced, then I would say you should work with us. You can give it a shot of a free trial, obviously. But if you're interested in buying, I would say this is the right time to do it because we are running a discount. Also, I'm sharing the link of our YouTube channel. Those of you who want to see the recording later on, those of you who want to basically look at it once again, maybe you might have missed something, I would highly suggest that you subscribe to the YouTube channel that I've shared with all of you now, so that you can use it. Also, if anyone of you want to talk to us, I'm also sharing the link of our Calendly. You can book a session with us, and you can talk to us anytime, anything that you want to. Okay, but I would strongly suggest that you subscribe to the YouTube channel, so that if you want to look at the recording again, you can do so. I would summarize by saying this, guys, that I hope you understand this fact that to do well in a question, it's all about being able to understand the question properly to be able to translate it. And for that, you need to see it being done number of times, the way we show it in our course. Okay, and obviously this was just a part of it. We discuss elaborately about all the questions that you see here, all the different ways of solving it. We show them all the ways that we do. Okay. If you have any questions regarding this, also if you want to look at the other webinars very quickly, I would say you should do so. This is the support ID. If you want to talk to us, please do it. We are conducting webinars every Saturday and Sunday, so feel free to attend them so that they help you out. But I would strongly suggest that this is the time to try it out. If you have any questions regarding it, just book a session with us. I've shared the calendar link as I told you. Okay. Any questions you have, please feel free to ask, and I'll be more than happy to help you out.